Welcome back to WeAreSC's Recruiting Roundup with Scott Schrader. I'm Devin, and we're back on Monday with some more important recruiting news. Before we get into the show, I want to make sure and thank our sponsor, Bird Dogs.
Thanks so much to Bird Dogs for sponsoring this video and sending me some of their signature Bird Dogs shorts. They're designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving me a truly sculpted look. Other shorts are made of restricting, stiff cotton, but Bird Dogs fixes this using cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but stretches to get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement.
Unfortunately, Bird Dogs is no longer offering the free tumbler with your order, but don't worry, if you're a fan of free stuff, they're going to offer a free tech hat with every order. It's white, has a signature Bird Dogs logo, and it looks fantastic. Go to www.birddogs.com/USC for the free tech hat with your order, or use promo code USC at checkout. That's www.birddogs.com/USC or promo code USC at checkout. Okay, so this last weekend, we had a nice recruiting visit out of class 25 and 26 recruits. I got a list for you. Let's read them off real quick. I got Dijon Lee, Jordan Davison, Noah McHale, Jack Van Dorsalier, Devon Benjamin, and Deshaun Rideau. Scott, let's start from the top. Dijon Lee is a cornerback. What do you think about him?
Yeah, Dijon has been on campus a lot, and his interest in USC is extremely high. He's one of those guys, I think we've mentioned it here in the past, that, you know, if he had an announcement date for a school choice, I would submit a prediction for USC on Dijon Lee. So this is to me, I haven't seen a guy, especially with his length. I'm not sure, like maybe Elias Ricks type of. We're talking about his length, maybe even a little bit longer than Elias, and really athletic, really sticky. This guy's cover skills, you know, you can throw him out there on an island with the best receiver on any team, and this guy's going to be able to probably lock him down pretty well. So yeah, he's at the very, very, very top of Dante Williams' board.
For sure. Yeah, next up we got Jordan Davison, running back.
Yeah, Jordan Davison, another guy that's very high on USC's board. You know, I know there's a lot of, I think, vibes coming from Texas right now. You know, they had Bijan Robinson, and that's going to carry a lot of weight for a while with running backs recruiting at Texas. So I know that there's been some predictions for Texas, and I would say probably slow your roll on making predictions on Jordan Davison. USC is going to definitely be in the mix for him when it's all said and done a year from now plus. So it's good that he got back on campus. I don't think he had been since March, and that was the only other time this year that he had been on campus. But his interest is very, very high in USC.
For sure. Yeah, next up we got Noah McHale, a linebacker.
Top. There you go. There's a pattern here with the guys that they had come in. You know, USC's limited on really focusing on recruiting right now because they start the season a week earlier than everybody else. So fall camp, therefore, started last week, and some of these other places, they haven't started their fall camp yet. So they were able to have guys, some hosted official visits, had some big class of 2024 guys show up. But the guys that USC brought in, including those that we've mentioned, are at the very top of the board. Noah's one of those. And again, his interest is extremely high in USC as well. And I don't know where it's going to ultimately end with his recruitment, but USC will be one of those 2-3 schools for sure.
Sounds good, yeah. And then, Scott, I haven't heard much about Jack Van Dorsalier. I'm wondering if you know him.
I don't know much about Jack, and I'm not sure if we're pronouncing his name right either.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Van Dorsalaar.
Dorsalaar.
But it is A-E-R, right?
It is A-E-R, yeah.
Yeah. Dorsalaire, I'm thinking might be how I'm inclined to pronounce it. But, you know, I can butcher names with the best of them. But, no, this is someone I'm not all that familiar with either. I believe he's from Austin, Texas. So I know he is from Texas. I'm not sure of the city, but he's somebody that we will be Marshall and I will be contacting him this week. We'll be catching up with a lot of class of 2025 guys starting this week.
For sure. And then next up, Devon Benjamin.
Yeah, this is one of the most talented guys from the class of 2026 on the West Coast. A cornerback USC offered. They had an opportunity to see him compete at the camps that they held in June. The last one was the 7-on-7 camp, and we had actually had an opportunity to see him there. And Deshaun Rideau, who we will be talking about here shortly, was actually the one who told me to keep an eye on his teammate Devon Benjamin. So we got a good look at him. And this guy's going to be he is definitely in my mind going to be one of the top players for class of 2026. And, it's hard for people to get excited about the class of 2026. It's a few years down the road, but I'm telling you, time flies, people.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then finally, the last one was Deshaun Rideau.
Again, and then here's another guy, and his interest in USC is extremely high as well. And he's another top target. So these are guys that we're going to see back on campus here as the season unfolds also. But these are guys that'll be at games, probably most of the home games.
And then moving on, if you haven't heard the news over the past few days, offensive tackle Manasse Itete has decommitted from USC and quickly turned around and committed to Florida State. Scott, I'll let you drink your water first, but I'm wondering if you have any insight on why he decommitted and why it was so quick.
Florida State was the school that most of us thought that he was going to commit to before the USC official visit. But everything went really, really well on the USC visit, and I think he left really thinking USC was where he was going to end up. But USC is just not going to be competing with some of these other programs when it comes to at least offering specific amounts of NIL opportunities. So sometimes when you'll see somebody kind of switch it up, especially this fast, oftentimes you can either assume that the school doesn't want that player. In this case, that's not the case, or it's name, image, and likeness opportunities. And Florida State is very, very aggressive in that category.
Does this change any recruiting plans regarding O-linemen, and does that open up a new spot for possibly another addition?
Obviously it opens up a spot. Definitely. Anytime you lose a guy, you're opening up a spot. But at this point, it doesn't necessarily mean USC is going to fill that spot with a high school player. It's the days of settling for somebody just because you need a body for practices or you need to have depth, are kind of long gone. So if they don't have guys, they'll keep pursuing some guys that are going to be committed at other schools. I would imagine they will continue to pursue Isaiah Garcia, who just committed to Utah. That could be a guy they go back on. Down the road, maybe DeAndre Carter becomes a guy that they kind of take another look at. I'm not saying they're going to do this, but those are just some options that you have. And then you have guys that, all along you were planning on evaluating as the season starts and get 3-4 games of film on guys, and then you offer them and see where things go. So there are options. I would expect USC to add another offensive lineman, from high school. But if they don't, they're just going to do it like they have this off season. Just think about who they have this off season from the transfer portal. Those guys are all starting this season for USC.
Oh yeah, super true. And then moving on, we could maybe lose another recruit. I mean, Dakoda Fields, I know, is visiting Oregon this week. Should USC be scared, or are we pretty solid?
I felt like after he committed to USC and the reasons that he gave and the reasons that his family were talking to me about, I felt like, there was a chance he could go visit some schools, but I was thinking he was going to ultimately end up sticking with USC. But this was one of those situations where, a program, a coaching staff wants an early commitment from a kid, and they get it, and maybe he's not really, really ready to commit at that particular point. So I'm hearing, yes, USC does have something to worry about with Dakoda and Oregon. So tomorrow we'll see what happens when I head over to Sarah High School and start poking around.
For sure, yeah. And then I just heard we got a few more class of 2024 recruits, both linebackers, right? I know it's Michael Boganowski, who is the number 1 player in Kansas, number 44 linebacker. He's out of Junction City, Kansas. I'm wondering if you have any done any homework on him.
Boganowski is not somebody that I am all that familiar with, but we did reach out to him, and he did say that he was going to end up visiting USC at some point during the season. So, although it's a late offer, obviously it's one that matters to him. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these later recruitments start panning out for USC.
Definitely. And then following Michael Boganowski, USC has offered Devin Smith. He's from Georgia. So to cap off today's show, we're going to have a little discussion on the future of the Pac-12. If you haven't heard, Colorado has officially made the leap and is joining the Big 12 for the 2024 season. Arizona may potentially have a landing spot in the Big 12 due to their, basketball status. But Scott, what does this mean for the Pac-12?
Yeah, it was interesting to actually read, I think it was read or heard Paul Feinbaum talk about how Colorado leaving the Pac-12 is like the death of the conference. And my first reaction was like, really, Colorado's like the death of the Pac-12? But I know somebody said, yeah, but what he's just talking about is another team. Now it's the Pac-9, right? So he's just saying, what's next? The Pac-8 and then the Pac-7. So I think that's what Paul Feinbaum was more or less I think referring to. But that's just, you hear the stuff that's happening. You and I were talking about this before we started recording. It's just the writing seems like it's on the wall, right? Yeah. At some point, the flagships that are left, whoever categorizes them as the flagships. I'm choosing Washington and Oregon as the main programs. But ironically, it would be Stanford that could write their own ticket if they wanted to join the Big Ten. Because Stanford and Notre Dame. It's kind of like if either one of those programs or both those programs wanted to join the Big Ten tomorrow, they would be let in. And that's just. But if we're talking about, if you're looking at football and you're looking at basketball potentially, and then the combination of, Washington, Oregon are definitely those programs. So, yeah, Colorado, now Arizona could be next, and then we've heard talk about Oregon State. And then where does this leave Oregon and Washington?
Leaves what, 5 teams left, and then you're asking yourself, do you want to bring up teams? There's the SMU, there's the San Jose State, the San Diego State, all the upper level group of 5.
UNLV, did you mention them?
UNLV, I did not mention them, but
that could be another one. But you could make an interesting conference out of combining what you would have, but you're just lacking. You cannot be considered an elite conference at that point.
It's just a Power 5 conference.
Yeah, so in that regard, will the Pac-12 no longer exist completely? I don't know, but
where's Cal going to go? Is Cal going to go down to the Mountain West?
Yeah, again, right. You're talking about these schools. You got Washington, Cal, Stanford. You have a really Utah. They're all still in the Pac-12, and it's kind of like they would be nice additions anywhere.
Yeah,
really, they're just not going to be good located in the Pac-12. Or in the current state. So. I think we're all just kind of waiting to see what happens with Oregon and Washington at this point. We hear about Arizona, in the Big 12, but
so what you're saying is the nail isn't in the coffin quite yet. We got to wait and see what Oregon and Washington do, and then it's over.
That's kind of like where I feel it's at.
Yeah,
I don't think anything's completely over until those programs are somewhere else.
Definitely. Well, thank you for tuning in to another edition of WeAreSC's Recruiting Roundup with Scott Schrader. I'm Dylan Brashier, and we'll see you next Monday. Fight on.